I might be able to see this. This the book I'll be reading. As a Man Thinketh. Should be a lot of parts to this series. This will be my first book. I just bought it for real. I don't really know too much about it. First off, foremost, let me say this. I believe in prayer. I don't believe in manifestation. I believe in prayer. But I'm going to see what this is about. If you like stuff like this, give it a like. You know what I'm saying? Comment, give me a, you know what I'm saying? Click subscribe to the As a Man Thinketh. Includes the mastery of destiny. James Allen. Forward, this little volume, the result of meditation and experience, is not intended as an exhaustive treatise on which written upon subject of power of thought. It is subjective rather than explanatory. Its subject being to stimulate men and women to discovery and perception of the truth that they themselves are makers of themselves, by virtue of thoughts which they choose and encourage, that the mind is the master weaver, both of the inner garment of character and the outer garment of circumstance, and that as they may have hitherto woven in ignorance and pain, they may they may now weave in enlightenment and happiness. James Allen. Broadport, Broadport Avenue, Ilfracombe, England. Thought and character. The aphorism, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, not only embraces the whole of a man's being, but is so comprehensive as to reach out to every condition and circumstance of his life. A man is literally what he thinks, his character being the complete sum of all his thoughts. As the plant springs from and could not be without the seed, so every act of a man springs from the hidden seeds of thought and could not have appeared without them. This applies equally to those acts called spontaneous and unpremeditated. As to those which is deliberately executed, act is the blossom of thoughts, and joy and suffering are its fruits. Thus being a man garnered in the sweet and bitter fruitage of his husbandry. Man is a growth by law, and not a creation by artifice. And cause and effect is as absolute and undeviating and hidden realm of thought as in the world of visible and material things. A noble and godlike character is not a thing of favor or chance, but is a natural result of continued effort and right thinking, the effect of long cherished association with godlike thoughts. An ignoble and bestial character by the same process is the result of the continued harboring and groveling thoughts. Man is made or unmade by himself. In the armory of thought he forges the weapons by which he destroys himself. He also fashions his tools with which he builds for himself heavenly mansions of joy and strength and peace. By the right choice and true application of thought, man ascends to divine perfection. By the abuse and wrong application of thought, he descends below the level of the beast. Between these two extremes are all the grades of character, and man is their maker and master of all the beautiful truths pertaining to the soul, in which have been restored and brought to light in his age. None of us more gladdening or fruitful or divine promise and confidence than this. The man is the master of thought, the molder of character, and the maker and shaper of condition, environment, and destiny. As a being of power, intelligence, and love, and the lord of his own thoughts, Man holds the keys to every situation. That's deep, ain't it? And contains within himself that transforming and regenerative agency by which he may make himself what he wills. Man, always the master, even in his weaker and most abandoned state, when in his weakness and uh, degradation, he is the foolish master who misgoverns his household. When he begins to reflect upon his condition and search diligently for the law upon which his being is established, he then becomes the wise master, directing his energies with intelligence and fashioning his thoughts to fruitful issues. Such is the conscious master, and man can only thus become by discovering within himself the laws of thought, which discovery is totally a master of application, self-analysis, and experience. Only by much searching and mining are gold and diamonds obtained, and man can find every truth connected with his being. If he will dig deep into the mind of his soul, and that he is the maker of his character, the motor of his life, and the builder of his destiny, he may unerringly prove if he will prove he will watch, control, and alter his thoughts, tracing their effects upon himself, upon others, and upon his life and circumstances, linking the cause and effect by patient practice and investigation, and utilizing his every experience, even to the most trivial everyday occurrence, as a means of obtaining the knowledge and himself, which is understanding, wisdom, power, in this direction, as in no other, is the law absolute that he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. For only by patience, practice, and ceaseless importunity, I can't even say the word, importunity, can a man enter the door of the temple of knowledge. Effect of thoughts on circumstances. Man's minds may be likened to a garden, which may be intelligently cultivated or allowed to run wild, by whether cultivated or neglected. It must and will bring forth, if no useful seeds are put into it, then an abundance of useless weed seeds will fail therein, and will continue to produce their kind. Just as a gardener cultivates his plot, keeping it free from weeds and growing the flowers and fruits which he requires, so may a man tend the garden of his mind, weeding out all the wrong, useless, and impure thoughts, and cultivating toward perfection the flowers and the fruits of the right, useful, and pure thoughts. By pursuing the process, a man sooner or later discovers that he is the master gardener of the soul, the director of his life. He also reveals within himself the laws of thought and understands that ever-increasing accuracy, how thought forces and mind elements operate in the shaping of his character, circumstances, and destiny. Thought and character are one, and as a character can only manifest and discover itself through environment and circumstance. The outer conditions of a person's life will always be found to be harmoniously related to his inner state. This does not mean that a man's circumstances at any given time are an indication of his entire character, but that those circumstances are so intimately connected with some vital thought element within himself that, for the time being, they are indispensable to his development. Every man is where he is by the law of his being. The thoughts in which he was built into his character have brought him there. In the arrangement of his life, there is no element of chance, but all is the result of a law which cannot which cannot err. But this is just a true of those who feel out of harmony, with their surroundings, as of those who are contented with them. As a progressive and evolving being, a man is where he is, that he may learn, that he may grow, and as he learns the spiritual lesson which any circumstance contains for him, it passes away, gives a place to other circumstances. Man is buffeted by circumstances so long as he believes himself to be the creature of outside conditions, but when he realizes that he is the creative power, that he may command the hidden soil and seeds of being out of which circumstances grow, he then becomes the rightful master of himself. That circumstance, that circumstances grow out of thought. Every man knows who has for any length of time practiced self-control or self-purification, for he will have noticed that all the alteration and in these circumstances have been in exact ratio with his altered mental condition. So true is that when a man earnestly applies himself to remedy the defects in his character and make swift and marked progress, he passes rapidly through a succession of vicissitudes. The soul attracts, the soul attracts that which it secretly harbors, that which it loves, and that also in which it fears. It reaches the height of its cherished aspirations, it falls to the level of its unchastened desires, and circumstances are the mean by which the soul receives its own. Every thought seed sown or allowed to fall into the mind and to take root there produces its own, blossoming sooner or later into act and bearing into its own fruitage of opportunity and circumstance. Good thoughts bear good fruit. Bad thoughts bear bad fruit. The outer world of circumstance shapes itself to the inner world of thought, and both pleasant and unpleasant external conditions or factors in which make for the ultimate good of the individual as the reaper of his own harvest. Man learns both by suffering and bliss, following the inmost desires, aspirations, thoughts by which he allows himself to be dominated, pursuing the will-o-wisp of impure imagining and steady fasting, walking the highway of strong and high endeavor. A man at last arrives at the fruition and fulfillment and the count and the outer conditions of his life. The laws of growth and adjustment everywhere obtains. A man does not come to the almshouse or the jail by the tyranny of fate or circumstance, but by the pathway of groveling thoughts and base desires, nor does a pure-minded man fall suddenly into a crime by stress of any mere external force. The criminal that had long been secretly fostered in the heart, and the hour of opportunity revealed, it's gathered by power. Second. It's gathered by power. Circumstance does not make the man, it reveals him to himself. No such circumstances can exist as descending into vice and its attendant sufferings, apart from vicious inclinations of ascending into virtue and its pure happiness, without the continued cultivation of virtuous aspirations. And man, therefore, as the Lord and the master of thought, it is the maker of himself, the shaper of author of environment. Even at birth, the soul comes to its own, and through every step of its earthly pilgrimage, it attracts those combinations of conditions which reveals itself, which are the reflections of its own purity and impurity, its strengths and weaknesses. Men do not attract that which they want, but which they are. Their whims, fantasies, and ambitions, therefore, are at every step, but the inmost thoughts and desires are fed with their own food, but be it foul or clean, the divinity that shapes our ends is in ourselves. It is our very self. Only himself manacles man's. Through thought and action are the gaolers of fate. They imprison being base, they are also the angels of freedom. They liberate being noble, not what he wishes and prays for, does a man get, but what he justly earns. Both. I believe both. Man don't work, man don't eat. So, hey, uh, his wishes and prayers are only gratified and answered when they're harmonized with his thoughts and actions. Right. Prayer without action is undone. In the light of this truth, and then in the meaning of fighting against circumstances, it means that a man is continually revolting against an effect without, while all the time he is nourishing and preserving its cause in his heart. That cause may take the form of a conscious vice or unconscious weakness. But whatever it is, it stubbornly retards the efforts of its possessor, and thus calls aloud for remedy. For all y'all that don't like saying the word retard. Men are anxious to improve their circumstances, but are unwilling to improve themselves, that they therefore remain bound. The man who does not shrink from self crucifixion can never fail to accomplish the object upon which his heart is set. That is as true of earthly or heavenly things. When the man whose sole object is to acquire wealth must be prepared to make great personal sacrifices before he can accomplish his goals, and how much more so he would realize a strong and well poised life. Here is a man who is wretchedly poor. He is extremely anxious that his surroundings and home comforts should be improved, yet all the time he shirks at his work and considers he is justified in trying to deceive his employer on the ground of insufficiency of his wages. Such a man does not understand the simplest rudiments of these principles, which are the basis of true prosperity, and is not only for all y'all that don't have a hustle outside y'all work. Y'all might want to get on something. And only totally unfitted to rise of his wretchedness, but is actually attracted to himself a still deeper wretchedness by dwelling in and acting out indolent, deceptive, and unmanly thoughts. Here is a rich man who is a victim of a painful, persistent disease as a result of gluttony. He is willing to give large sums of money to get rid of it, but he will not sacrifice his gluttonous desires. He wants to gratify his taste for rich and unnatural viands and have his health as well. Such a man is totally unfit to have health because he has not yet learned the first principles of a healthy life. Meaning, it's just my opinion. Stop going to the doctor and paying for health when you just clearly just exercise and eat right and do what you're supposed to do and do dietary things. Imagine going to the doctor, you keep paying for all these pills, this and the third, and you still get sick and you still die and you still get diseased. It makes no sense. Here is an employer of labor who adopts crooked measures to avoid paying the regulation wage, and in the hope of making large profits, reduces the wages of his work people. Such a man is altogether unfitted for prosperity, and when he finds himself bankrupt, both as regards reputation and riches, he blames circumstances, not knowing that he is the sole author of his condition. I have introduced these three cases merely as illustrative of the truth, and the man is the causer, though nearly always is unconsciously of his circumstances, and that whilst aiming at a good end, he is continuously frustrated as accomplished by encouraging thoughts and desires of which cannot possibly harmonize with the end. Such cases could be multiplied and varied almost indefinitely, but this is not necessary, as the reader can, if he also resolves to trace the action of laws and thoughts into his own mind and life. And until this is done, mere external facts cannot serve as a ground of reasoning. Circumstances, however, are also complicated. Thought is so deeply rooted, and the conditions of happiness vary so vastly that with individuals that a man's entire soul condition, although it may be known to himself, cannot be judged by another from the external aspect of his life alone. A man may not be honest in certain directions, yet suffer privations. A man may be dishonest in certain directions, yet acquire wealth. But the conclusion usually formed that one man fails because of his particular honesty, and the other prospers because of his particular dishonesty, is the result of superficial judgment, which assumes that this honest man is also almost totally corrupt. To this honest man is uh, almost virtually, almost entirely virtuous. In the light of a deeper knowledge and wider experience, and such judgment is found to Uranus. The dishonest man may have some admirable virtues which the other does not possess, and the honest man obviously vices which are absent in the other. The honest man reaps the good results of his honest thoughts and his acts. He also brings upon himself the sufferings which is the vice produce. The dishonest man likewise garners his own suffering and happiness. It is pleasing to human vanity to believe that one suffers because one virtues, but not until a man has extirpated every sickly, bitter, impure thought from his mind, and washed every sinful strand from his soul, can be in a position to know and declare that his sufferings is result of his good and not his bad qualities on the way to, yet long before he was reached that supreme perfection he will have found working in the mind and life the great law which is absolutely just, and which cannot therefore give good for evil or evil for good. Possessed of such knowledge, he will even know, looking back upon his past ignorance and blindness, that his life is, and always was, justly ordered, and that all his past experiences, good or bad, were equitable outworking of his involving yet uninvolved life self. I said life self. Good thoughts and actions can never produce bad results. Bad thoughts and actions can never produce good results. This is but saying that nothing can come from corn but corn, nothing can come from nettles but nettles. Men understand this law in the natural world and work with it. But few understand in the mental and moral world thought its operation, that there is just a simple and undeviating, and they therefore do not cooperate with suffering. Suffering is always effect of wrong thought in some direction, right? Suffering is also good. Some people don't understand it. It is an indication that the individual is one of harmony with himself, with the law of his being. The sole and supreme use of suffering is to purify, to burn out all that is useless and impure. Suffering ceases for him who is pure. There could be no object in burning gold after the dross had been removed and perfectly pure, and enlightened being could not suffer. The circumstances which a man encounters with suffering are the results of his own mental and harmony. The circumstances in which a man encounters the blessedness or the results of his own mental harmony. Blessedness are not material possessions. Facts. Is the You gotta be careful using that word too, but we'll talk about that later. I got some more stuff cooking up. Is the measure of right thought. Wretchedness and not lack of material possessions is the measure of wrong thought. A man may be cursed or rich. He may be blessed or poor. Blessedness and riches are only joined together when the riches are rightly and wisely used, and the poor man only descends into wretchedness when he regards his lot as a burden unjustly imposed. Indigence and indulgence are two extremes of wretchedness. They are both equally unnatural and result in mental disorder. I'll read that again. Indigence and indulgence are two extremes of wretchedness. They are both equally unnatural and the result of mental disorder. A man is not rightly conditioned until he is happy, healthy, and prosperous being, and happiness, health, and prosperity are the result of harmonious adjustment of the inner with the outer, and the man with his surroundings. A man only begins to be a man when he ceases to whine and revolve and commences to search for hidden justice which regulates his life. And as he adapts his mind to that regulating factor, he ceases to accuse others as the cause of his condition and builds himself up in the strong normal thoughts, ceases to kick against circumstances but begins to use them as aids to his more rapid progress and as means of discovering the hidden powers and possibilities within himself. Law, not confusion, is the dominating principle in the universe. Justice is not injustice, it's the soul and substance of life, and righteousness, not corruption, is the molding and moving force in the spiritual government of the world. This being so, man has to be right himself to find that the universe is right. During the progress in putting himself right, he will find that he alters his thoughts towards things and other people, and things and other people will alter towards him. The proof of this truth is in every person there, and therefore admits of easy investigation by systematic introspection and self-analysis. Let a man radically alter his thoughts, and he will be astonished at the rapid transformation he will effect in the material conditions of his life. Men imagine that the thought can be kept secret, but cannot. It rapidly crystallizes into habit, and habit solidifies into circumstance. Bestial thoughts crystallize into habits and drunkenness and sensuality, which solidify into circumstances of destitution and disease, and pure thoughts of every kind crystallized into innovating and confusing habits, which solidify into distracting and adverse circumstances. Thoughts of fear, doubt, and indecision crystallized into weak, unmanly, and irresistible habits, which solidify into circumstances of failure, indigence, and slavish dependence. Lazy thoughts crystallized into habits of uncleanliness and dishonesty, which solidify into circumstances of foulness and beggary. That's one thing, y'all. Don't, as a man, don't never beg. Get out and go get what you need and do what you want. Don't beg nobody for shit. Don't beg nobody for no time. Don't beg no woman for nothing. Don't beg nobody, your parents. Don't beg nobody. Don't beg nobody. Hateful and condemnatory thoughts crystallize into habits and accusation and violence. That's for women too. Don't beg for nothing. Which solidify into circumstances of energy and persecution. Selfish thoughts of all kinds crystallize into habits of self-seeking, which solidify into circumstances more or less distressing. On the other hand, beautiful thoughts of all kinds crystallize into habits of grace and kindleness, which solidify into gentle and sunny. That ain't spelled right. Gentle and sunny circumstances, pure thoughts crystallize into habits of temperance and self-control, which solidify into circumstances of repose and peace. Thoughts of encouragement, self-reliance, and decision, and crystallize into manly habits, which solidify into circumstances of success, plenty, and freedom. Energetic thought crystallize into habits of cleanliness and industry, which solidify into circumstances of pleasantness. Gentle and forgiving thoughts crystallize into habits of gentleness, which solidify into protective and preservative circumstances. Loving and unselfish thoughts preserve into circumstance. Loving and unpossessive thoughts crystallize into habits of self-forgetfulness for others, which solidify circumstances of sure and abiding prosperity and true riches. 1 second. A A particular train of thought persisted in, be it good or bad, cannot fail to produce its results on the character and circumstances. A man cannot directly choose his circumstances, but he can choose his thoughts, and so indirectly yet surely shape his circumstances. Nature helps every man in the gratification of the thoughts in which he most encourages, and opportunities are presented that he will most likely speedily bring to the surface both the good and evil thoughts. Let a man cease from his sinful ways, and all the world will soften towards him and be ready to help him. Let him put away his weakly and sickly thoughts, and lo, opportunities and will spring up on every hand to aid his strong resolves. Let his courage good thoughts, and no hard fate shall bind him down to wretchedness and shame. The world is your kaleidoscope, and the varying combinations of colors in which at every succeeding moment it presents to you are the exquisitely adjusted pictures of your every moving thoughts. So you will be that you will be. Let failure find its false content into that poor word environment, but spirit scorns it and is free. Its master's time, it conquers space. It codes the boastful tricks to chance, and it bids the tyrant circumstance, uncrown and fill a servant's place. The human will, that forces unseen, the offspring of a deathless soul, may hew a way of any goal, through walls of granite intervening, but not impatient in delays, but wait as one who understands when spirit rises and commands the gods are ready to obey. Alright, this is the end of chapter 1. We'll talk about chapter 2 tomorrow. I don't know. I'll put a video up soon. Right now I'm just going live. I'm trying to see what's going on, but I'll put a video up soon. Again, this is the book. If y'all can see it. So, man, thank you.